Have you ever been in a place where you thought you knew someone completely, only to discover that everything you thought was real had been a lie? For Jessica, that moment came on a cold, quiet night. She was sitting alone in the living room of her apartment, surrounded by the silence that seemed to echo her feelings of betrayal. The phone buzzed, and for a brief moment she hesitated. It was a message from her sister Olivia, who was always the perfect one in the family. The message was simple, but it changed everything. "I'm with him. I think you deserve to know." The him was Jessica's husband, the one person she had trusted more than anyone. In an instant, her world came crashing down. It wasn't just about her husband. It wasn't even just about Olivia, her sister, the one who had always been favored, always been the golden child in their family. This was about the lies that had been told, the facades that had been built, and the truth that was finally brutally exposed. But Jessica wasn't one to break down. No, this was the moment she chose to rise. You see, Jessica wasn't like everyone else. She wasn't someone who needed to be saved, and she wasn't someone who could be crushed by betrayal. She was independent, strong, and had built her life on her own. But her family, they had never understood her. They had always favored Olivia, the one who never had to struggle, who always got the praise and love that Jessica worked so hard to earn. Jessica was used to being overlooked. But this time it was different. As she stared at her phone screen, her fingers shaking, she made a choice. She wouldn't fight for money. She wouldn't fight for their approval. She would fight for herself. This was about something deeper. This was about taking control of her own story, about proving that she could stand tall on her own terms. And so the plan began. In the weeks that followed, Jessica started putting the pieces together. She knew she couldn't trust the law. She knew she couldn't trust her family. But what she did know was how to make sure the truth came out. The kind of truth that couldn't be ignored. She started digging, uncovering hidden secrets that no one could have imagined. And slowly but surely, she began to write her own version of the story. But she wasn't the only one who had a hand in this tale. Olivia, her sister, was about to learn that sometimes, being the golden child doesn't save you from the weight of your own lies. Stay with me, because this story is about to unfold in a way no one saw coming. A story about betrayal, redemption, and the strength it takes to reclaim your own life. And this is just the beginning. Jessica had always prided herself on being independent. She built her career, made her own decisions, and never relied on anyone but herself. So when she found out the truth, when her whole world flipped upside down, it wasn't just her heart that shattered. It was the very foundation of everything she thought she knew. It happened one evening as she walked into the living room, phone in hand, a casual glance at her messages. A message popped up from her sister Olivia, simple but enough to turn Jessica's world into a storm. "I'm with him. I think you deserve to know." Her heart dropped into her stomach. Him. The man she had married, the man she trusted, the man who swore to love her forever. The man who, behind her back, had fallen for her sister. Olivia, her own sister. The one who had always been the favorite, the one who never seemed to try but always got what she wanted. For a moment, everything around Jessica blurred. Her breath caught in her chest, and for the first time, she felt utterly paralyzed. The two people she loved and trusted most had betrayed her, and in the worst way imaginable. But Jessica wasn't someone who would crumble in this moment. She didn't allow herself the luxury of giving in to the heartbreak, even though it stung so deeply. No, she wasn't going to let them see her weak. She was stronger than that. Instead of falling apart, she stood still. She breathed. And in that breath, she found something even stronger than anger. She found her resolve. This betrayal would not define her. She would not allow it to break her spirit. Love can blind us, Jessica thought. It can make us ignore the signs, overlook the red flags, and trust when we should question. But when it all falls apart, when the truth comes crashing down, that's when we find our strength. We find what we're really made of. And from that moment on, Jessica made a promise to herself. She wasn't going to sit by, devastated and defeated. No, she would rise above this. She would take back control of her life, no matter what it took. The story was just beginning. The truth hit Jessica harder than she had expected. It wasn't just about her husband's betrayal, or even her sister's. It was about her family's response, or lack of it. As the days passed, Jessica found herself replaying every family gathering, every conversation, every interaction with her parents, her aunt, her uncle, and Olivia, trying to make sense of what had happened. But there was one thing that kept coming up: silence. It was the silence that stung the most. Jessica remembered the family dinner a few weeks before. Her mother, as usual, had given all her attention to Olivia, asking about her children, praising her for being the perfect mother, the perfect daughter. Olivia always knew the right things to say, the right smile to give. But Jessica, she sat there, her contributions to the conversation met with polite nods, as though her words didn't matter. No one asked about her life, her challenges, or her feelings. It was always about Olivia. When Jessica thought back on it, the most painful part wasn't just the lack of attention. It was the complete disregard for her emotions. Her mother, the woman who should have been her biggest support, never once stood up for her. Not when her father made snide comments about Jessica's independence, and certainly not when Olivia started making her moves on Jessica's husband behind closed doors. And now, after everything had been exposed, after the truth was out, her family still chose silence. They never addressed it. They didn't even say the words that could have offered some comfort. They chose to protect Olivia, to keep up the charade of family unity, keep the peace. But the peace came at a high cost, the cost of Jessica's heart. It was her mother who hurt her the most. When Jessica went to her, searching for some kind of acknowledgement, for some kind of support, all she got was the same old response. "You know how Olivia is, darling. She didn't mean any harm." The betrayal Jessica felt was not just from her sister or her husband, but from the very people who should have stood by her. Her family had been complicit in Olivia's actions by staying silent. They didn't want to disrupt the perfect image they had built around her. But in their silence, they had failed her in the worst way possible. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize they have two choices: let the betrayal break them, or rise above it with a strength they didn't know they had. For Jessica, that moment arrived the night after she found out about her sister Olivia's affair with her husband. Instead of sinking into despair or letting the weight of it all consume her, Jessica made a choice. She wasn't going to fight Olivia for money. She wasn't going to engage in a legal battle that could drag on for years. She wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of watching her crumble. No, Jessica chose something far more powerful. She chose to take action on her own terms. In the stillness of her apartment, as the cool night air blew in through the window, Jessica sat down at her desk and began to plan. She knew that getting back at Olivia wouldn't come from anger. It would come from strategy. From something much deeper. It would come from taking control of her own life, not letting her emotions dictate her every move. She wasn't going to play by the rules they set. Instead, she would outsmart them. Jessica knew that revenge didn't have to be loud or dramatic. It didn't have to be in your face. The most effective revenge, she realized, was quiet, methodical, and precise. It wasn't about causing harm or destruction. It was about revealing the truth in a way that no one could ignore. Many people, when betrayed by their family, rush into action driven by raw emotion. They want immediate revenge, or they want to fight back with everything they have. However, the most lasting and effective revenge often comes when we take a step back, calm our emotions, and approach the situation strategically. When you act with a clear mind, you are in control, not the people who hurt you. Jessica's decision wasn't about burning bridges or creating chaos. It was about carefully calculating the best way to expose the truth, to turn the tables, and to show Olivia and her family that no one could take advantage of her anymore. She thought of the best way to hurt them, not by tearing them down with anger, but by stripping away their carefully crafted facade, piece by piece. She knew the truth was the most powerful weapon she had. All she had to do was use it wisely. In the days that followed the discovery of Olivia's betrayal, Jessica didn't fall into a pit of despair. Instead, she began to think carefully, strategically. She knew that the truth was her most powerful weapon, and the key to that truth was in Olivia's past. the hidden secrets that no one else knew, but that Jessica could uncover. Jessica had always been the observant one. While Olivia coasted through life, effortlessly charming everyone around her, Jessica had learned the art of watching, listening, and remembering. She had noticed the little things, the small inconsistencies, the things Olivia thought were hidden. Now it was time to dig deeper. She started with social media, the modern-day treasure trove of personal information. Jessica knew that people often posted things without thinking about the long-term consequences. A picture here, a comment there. Little breadcrumbs that might seem insignificant at first but could reveal a deeper story if you knew where to look. Scrolling through Olivia's Instagram feed, Jessica saw the usual posts. Family vacations, birthday celebrations, the perfect life on display for the world to admire. But as she dug deeper, she started to notice something off. An old picture from a trip to Italy caught her eye. Olivia had posted it years ago, when she was with a group of friends. The caption was innocent enough, but there was something about the way Olivia had tagged people, something in the comments that felt wrong. Olivia had taken the trip with her friends, but Connor wasn't there. There was one name that stood out among the tagged people: David Carlisle. As Jessica scrolled through David's profile, she felt the pieces start to fall into place. The comments, the photos, the flirtatious remarks, the private messages. Everything pointed to one undeniable truth. Olivia had been having an affair with David for years. Jessica knew this wasn't just a minor detail. This was the information that would shake Olivia to her core. Jessica had always been the quiet one, the one who watched, who listened, and who kept her emotions in check. But as she sat in her apartment late that night, staring at the screen of her phone, she knew it was time to let go of the silence. Olivia had never believed there would be consequences. She had never believed that the mask she wore, the perfect sister, the perfect wife, would ever slip. But Jessica was about to show her just how fragile that facade really was. With a deep breath, Jessica opened her email and attached the carefully gathered evidence. The screenshots, the photos, the flirtatious messages. She didn't need to say much. The evidence spoke for itself. Jessica sent the email to everyone who mattered in Olivia's world. Her friends, her colleagues, even the neighbors who had watched her portray herself as the loving wife and mother. Each click of the send button felt like a weight lifting from her shoulders. Olivia had built an image of herself, one that was flawless, untouchable. But now that image would shatter. People would see the truth. They would know the woman behind the smile, the lies, and the perfect Instagram photos. Jessica didn't need to destroy Olivia. She just needed to expose her. Olivia had thought she could have it all. But now, Jessica would make sure everyone saw who Olivia truly was. Sometimes the most powerful form of revenge isn't about taking direct action to hurt someone. It's about letting them unravel on their own. Exposing the truth in a way that forces them to face the consequences of their actions can be far more effective than any immediate punishment. It's the slow, steady realization that the lies they built their world on can no longer protect them. Jessica wasn't out for vengeance in the traditional sense. She wasn't looking to destroy Olivia's life. No, Olivia had done that all on her own. Jessica's revenge wasn't about causing pain. It was about letting the truth do what it does best: break down the walls of deception. The most powerful kind of revenge often comes not from retaliation, but from simply allowing someone to destroy their own illusion of control. By exposing Olivia's affair, Jessica didn't just bring the truth to light. She showed Olivia that her perfect life, the one she had so carefully built, was fragile, just like any other lie. The truth always comes out, and it doesn't need anyone's help to do the damage. Olivia thought she could walk away from her actions with no consequences. What she didn't realize was that by trying to maintain her perfect image, she was actually setting herself up for the ultimate fall. Jessica didn't need to hurt her. Olivia was doing that all on her own. In the end, Olivia was left standing alone, isolated from the people she had spent years pretending to care about. The friends who once admired her, the family who had stood by her, all turned their backs on her. And all Jessica had to do was wait for the moment when the truth became impossible to ignore. As Jessica carefully crafted her plan, each step felt like a small victory. She knew the truth would hit harder than any legal battle ever could. And soon it was time to make her move. One evening, as the sunset painted the sky in hues of pink and orange, Jessica pressed send on a message that would unravel everything. With a calm, steady hand, she forwarded the damning evidence of Olivia's affair to her family, friends, and everyone who had ever stood by Olivia's perfect image. It wasn't just about exposing her sister's betrayal. It was about making sure that Olivia could no longer hide behind her facade of perfection. Jessica's heart raced as she thought about the storm that would follow. She had done what she had to do, and now it was time to sit back and watch Olivia's carefully constructed life fall apart. And that's when it all hit Jessica, the calm after the storm. She had taken her power back, but it came at a cost. Now I want to hear from you. What would you do if you were in Jessica's shoes? Would you have acted the same way? Do you think exposing the truth is always the right move, or does it sometimes cause more harm than good? Comment below and share your thoughts with us. Your opinion matters because, at the end of the day, we all have our own stories of betrayal and how we choose to respond. After Jessica exposed Olivia's affair, the storm she had set in motion grew far beyond her expectations. Olivia, once the golden child, was now a pariah, ostracized by everyone who had once admired her. But amid the chaos, something unexpected happened. Connor, Olivia's husband, reached out to Jessica. At first, Jessica didn't know what to make of it. Connor had always been the quiet one, the kind of person who stayed out of conflict. But now, with his marriage in shambles and his world turned upside down, he wasn't the same man. The weight of betrayal had shifted something inside him. Connor asked to meet Jessica. When they sat across from each other in a small cafe, his eyes were dark, heavy with the weight of his own realization. "I knew something was off," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I never imagined this." The pain in his voice wasn't just for himself. It was for his children, the family he had built with Olivia. He was devastated, but in a strange way, a part of him was also relieved. For years, he had lived in the shadow of Olivia's perfection, silently accepting the role she had crafted for him. But now the truth had come crashing down, and for the first time he felt free from the lies. Connor's decision to side with Jessica wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming his own life. He told Jessica that he had already filed for divorce. "I'm done," he said firmly. "I can't keep living in this lie. I need to protect my kids, and I can't do that if I'm still living with her." It was then that Jessica realized just how much of an impact her actions had. Not only had she exposed Olivia's deceit, but she had also awakened something in Connor, something that pushed him to take control of his life, to stop being a passive participant in the toxic cycle that had defined his marriage. In many situations, the truth doesn't just change one person's life. It has the power to change the lives of everyone involved. When Connor discovered the affair, it wasn't just Jessica's betrayal he had to come to terms with. It was his own. Often, the revelation of the truth serves as a wake-up call, not just for the person directly affected, but for everyone around them. Jessica had exposed the truth, but it was Connor who ultimately made the choice to act on it. His decision to leave Olivia and fight for custody wasn't just a personal victory. It was a moment of awakening for him, where he stopped being the passive spouse and took charge of his own destiny. As the weeks passed after the truth about Olivia's affair came to light, Jessica watched from the shadows, a quiet observer to her sister's unraveling life. The truth, as painful as it was, had become a force of nature, unrelenting, unstoppable. It wasn't Jessica's actions that had destroyed Olivia's life. No, it was Olivia's own choices that had set the course for her downfall. And now, Jessica could only stand back and watch as Olivia's carefully crafted world fell apart, piece by piece. First it was her friends. The group that had once praised her as the perfect wife, the perfect mother, and the perfect friend, now turned their backs on her. It started with a simple message: "I can't be part of this anymore." And soon Olivia's phone was flooded with messages from people who had once been close to her. They accused her of being a liar, a manipulator, and a fraud. The social circles she had so carefully cultivated, gone. At the school drop-offs, Olivia found herself alone. The other mothers who once smiled at her with envy, now whispered behind her back. They avoided her, their eyes filled with judgment, their smiles gone. In a community where reputation meant everything, Olivia's was shattered. She was no longer the perfect mother they had once admired. She was the one they whispered about. But it didn't stop there. The organization where Olivia had volunteered for years, the charity board where she had been a valued member, now turned on her too. They had supported her for her image, for the facade she had built, but once the truth came out, they could no longer stand by her. With a single email, they informed Olivia that her position was terminated, her services no longer needed. For Olivia, it felt as though everything she had worked for was slipping through her fingers. The life she had constructed, based on lies, had vanished almost overnight. And yet, it wasn't Jessica who had torn it all down. It was Olivia herself. In trying to maintain a perfect image and hide her truths, Olivia had left herself vulnerable. Vulnerable to the very people who had once admired her, who now saw her as nothing more than a fraud. The most profound thing Jessica realized during this time was that she hadn't needed to destroy Olivia. Olivia had already done that herself. The truth, once exposed, was like a crack in the dam. It didn't take much to break it open. It just took the right moment. Jessica's actions didn't destroy Olivia. They simply revealed the truth. And in the harsh light of that truth, Olivia was left to face the consequences of her own choices. This is the most important lesson of all. When you build your life on lies, you are always one moment away from losing everything. Olivia had used deceit, manipulation, and charm to create her perfect life. But the cost of those lies was high. When the truth was exposed, there was no place for her to hide. As the days turned into weeks, and the dust from Olivia's downfall settled, Jessica found herself standing at a crossroads. She had done what she set out to do, exposed the truth, reclaimed her dignity, and watched as her sister's perfect life unraveled before her eyes. But now, Jessica realized something important. She no longer cared about revenge. At first, she had been consumed with the desire to make Olivia pay for everything she had taken from her. The betrayal, the years of being overlooked, the silent disregard from her family, it all had to come to light. And now that it had, Jessica realized there was no satisfaction in it. Watching Olivia lose everything, while it may have felt like justice, didn't bring Jessica the peace she thought it would. What Jessica needed wasn't revenge. What she needed was freedom. Freedom from the past, freedom from her family's expectations, and most importantly, freedom from the toxic hold her past had on her. She had spent so many years trying to prove her worth, trying to earn love and recognition that had always been withheld from her. But now, she understood that her worth wasn't dependent on anyone's approval. It was time for a fresh start. Jessica used her inheritance to make the boldest decision of her life. She packed up her things, left behind the town that had been filled with too many painful memories, and moved to a new city. She didn't know exactly what her future would look like, but she knew she couldn't keep living in the shadow of her past. In her new city, Jessica started over, not just with a new address, but with a new mindset. She found a job that truly fulfilled her, something she had always dreamed of doing but had never had the chance to pursue. She surrounded herself with new people, people who saw her for who she truly was, not who they expected her to be. For the first time in years, Jessica felt truly alive. She had let go of the anger, the resentment, and the need for validation. She was finally free to live her life on her own terms. So often, when people experience betrayal or loss, they focus on getting back what they've lost, on righting the wrongs done to them. But in reality, what we lose isn't always as important as what we gain from the experience. Jessica's journey is a powerful reminder that life is not about revenge or trying to make things right with others. It's about finding your own happiness and inner peace. Sometimes, the best way to move forward is to simply leave the past behind and embrace the possibilities of a new beginning. As the months passed in her new city, Jessica began to realize that the true victory wasn't in what she had exposed or what she had lost. It was in what she had gained. For so many years, Jessica had lived in the shadow of her family's expectations. She had constantly sought approval from her parents, her sister, and even her friends. She had built her life around trying to prove that she was worthy of love, worthy of success, worthy of being seen. But in doing so, she had overlooked one important truth. She had always been enough, just as she was. Now, as she stood in her new apartment, staring out over the city skyline, Jessica saw herself in a way she never had before. She wasn't the overlooked daughter. She wasn't the woman who needed validation. She wasn't the one who had to fight for attention. She was strong, independent, and free. For the first time in her life, Jessica realized she didn't need anyone's approval but her own. She didn't need her family's love or her sister's affection. She had the power to create her own happiness, to build her own future, without relying on anyone who had ever made her feel like she wasn't good enough. Sometimes, we spend so much time looking for validation from the people who have hurt us or overlooked us that we forget the most important source of validation comes from within. Jessica's transformation is a powerful reminder that our worth is not defined by the people around us, but by how we see ourselves. When we learn to stand tall on our own, without needing the support of those who have betrayed or neglected us, we become unstoppable. Standing in front of her new home, Jessica took a deep breath, the crisp morning air filling her lungs. She had come so far. The journey from the woman she used to be, the one who clung to the hope that her family's approval would somehow make everything better, to the woman she was now, the woman who had learned to embrace her independence and forge her own path, felt like a lifetime. Looking out of the window, Jessica's gaze wandered across the quiet street. The sunlight bathed the neighborhood in a warm glow, and for the first time in a long time, she felt at peace. This was her home, her life, her future. And it was nothing like the life she had imagined when she was caught in the suffocating expectations of her past. Jessica smiled to herself, knowing that everything she had been through, the heartache, the betrayal, the loss, had led her to this moment. She wasn't just standing in a new house. She was standing in a new chapter of her life. She had let go of the anger and the resentment. She had let go of the need for validation. And in doing so, she had created something far greater. The freedom to live on her own terms, to build a life that brought her happiness, not from anyone else's approval, but from her own sense of self-worth. Often, we hold on to the past, believing that the pain, the loss, or the injustice we've experienced will always define us. But what Jessica's journey shows us is that the true power comes when we let go of the past and embrace the present. The truth may not always bring immediate happiness, but accepting it and releasing the weight of it can lead to a life filled with new possibilities, new dreams, and newfound happiness. The truth doesn't always bring instant joy. Sometimes it's hard and painful, but the real reward comes when you let go of the past and accept what is. It's through acceptance and release that we create the space for a future that is brighter, more hopeful, and filled with the freedom to be who we are meant to be. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to Jessica's story. It's a journey of betrayal, strength, and ultimately redemption. The lesson here is simple yet powerful. Sometimes the greatest victory is not in what we gain, but in what we reclaim from the past. Jessica's courage to stand up, expose the truth, and take control of her own destiny reminds us all that we have the power to reshape our future, no matter what challenges we face. Now, we want to hear from you. What did you take away from Jessica's story? How would you have handled her situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing from you. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories that inspire and motivate. Thank you again for watching, and we look forward to sharing more incredible journeys with you.